Hello everyone, welcome back to the Tech Sharmit podcast. Today I'm here with another special guest, Kevin Gee, who is joining us today all the way from United States. Kevin is a distinguished IT professional with an incredible diverse career spanning IT architecture, product management and engineering services. With expertise in IBM computing infrastructure and enterprise system, he has played a pivotal role in shaping the IT landscape over the years. Kevin has worked with cutting edge technologies from traditional enterprise computing to evolving field of edge computing and AI. Not only this, his extensive experience across multiple domains makes him a true IT leader, and he has also mentored and trained professionals in these fields, sharing his vast knowledge with those looking to break into the IT industry. So, today in this episode, we will dive into Kevin's career journey, the technologies that have shaped his work, and the trends sees transforming enterprise IT. But before we begin, I would like to thank Kevin for joining us today. And now I request you to please initiate the discussion by telling us something about yourself.
Sure. As you said, my name is Kevin Gee. I'm from the United States. I grew up in the state of Ohio, but I've been here in Texas now for 30 years. I'm an enterprise architect and consultant. I'm married. I have three children and two grandchildren. So,
All right. Okay. So let's start discussing bit about your journey. So like you have such a diverse career spanning IT, architecture, project management and engineering services and many more. So can you just walk us through your career journey, like how you transitioned between these roles and how the things got started back in those days?
sure. When I was in college, I was a computer science major, and I was expecting to write software for a living and do that the rest of my life. Um, And while I was in college, I'd started working in a variety of IT jobs to help pay for college. I did, some data center ops work. I worked as a software tester, et cetera. And in my last year of college, I got a job writing software that generated auto and life insurance quotes for insurance agents. And again, this is my last year of college, and this is supposed to be my career. And I found that I absolutely hated it. I hated everything about what I was doing. And that's a really terrible time to figure out that you don't like what you're studying. Or I liked what I was studying, but I didn't like the idea of having to write software. So I started trying to figure out what other roles I could pursue, that would make use of these computer science skills that I had. And that has then led to roles as a systems administrator, as an analyst, a systems engineer. I've worked in the field as a consultant. I've been an IT architect. I've worked in sales and marketing. In recent years, I've kind of transitioned more into a pre-sales role, and I've had my hand in that work for some degree for like 20 years. But I spent a lot of time in data centers and customer offices solving problems using the same mindset. I just wasn't writing code anymore. So I've been around the IBM's ecosystem for about 30 years now. At one point, I worked at IBM taking support calls. I've worked for clients. I've worked for channel partners helping sell and service stuff. I've worked for an engineering partner, helping do technical sales and guide the direction of products. And I've worked for managed service providers. What's interesting is that even though my role kept changing, people still wanted me for my experience around IBM systems and storage and software. I've been an IBM champion for the last 6 years, advocating, for IBM solutions. I didn't plan on doing any of this. I just sort of followed the next opportunity as it came up. There's a quote, and I'll share this, but Tom Cruise has been quoted as saying that early in his career, the way he would find roles is he would look for a great movie and then try to make his role great within that. I've tried to do that as well. I try to look for great companies with good opportunities. It's worked out more often than not.
All right. Okay. And we also saw that you have worked with a range of technologies from IBM computing infrastructure to enterprise storage to disaster recovery to enterprise backup and recovery. So, what's been the most exciting shift or trend you have witnessed in enterprise IT over the years?
Without a doubt, it's the rise of high performance computing and real time AI. It's no longer something in a research lab. It's now part of production IT. Um, I went to grad school in computer science. I studied AI. Um, so I had some research projects. This is 20 years ago, right? Where my software to build a model required a full 24-hour period to do one run of building the model. And then I would play around with it, and I'd decide, well, I need to make some changes. Well, that would be another 24 hours after I tweaked my code to go back and redo the model. Um, now you can do all this on a phone. And these were small data sets, right?
Yes.
20,000 documents in a corpus. 20 years ago, we were solving very interesting problems with limited data sets. But everybody kind of said, well, if we ever had faster systems, which didn't yet exist, we could implement better algorithms on larger data sets. And that time is now. That has come to fruition. In fact, there's now research going on that people are doing to show how we can accomplish the same results with less data. We almost have too much now. It's that was not something we complained about 20 years ago.
All okay. And like if we look at your career, so IBM computing, like IBM computing infrastructure seems to be a part, or maybe it is at your heart of your expertise. So, what are the key advantages of IBM Power in enterprise market? You think that yes, these are the things that resides in today's world as well. The key
Yeah.
advantages.
Yeah, without intending to do so, I've been around the IBM computing ecosystem. What is now IBM Power. It used to be the RS-6000 and the P series. I've been around that for 30 years. Look, here are four quick things where IBM is still relevant. The IBM Power is still relevant. One, it's such a powerful processor. You can
Yes.
put so many workloads on the same core, on the same size server. Every generation it gets faster and faster, and you can do more and more, or you can get smaller and smaller. So that leads to a lot of things like cheaper software licensing and stuff like that. Um, this is a super car, right? This is not a commodity, Toyota. This is more like a Maserati, and should be marketed as such, right? This is something that you solve high end problems with. So that's number one. Number two is it's flexible. You run different operating systems on the same server. You don't need to run. You can run different applications at the same time. You can run containers as well as traditional VMs. You can run that all at the same time on the same server. Number three, and this is a growing problem with data centers, but energy efficiency. Right? It's extremely efficient. You can put more applications on a smaller footprint. And then, finally, a lot of applications only run on IBM Power, and that's the thing, you're not going to convert everything to the newest technology overnight. There's a lot of applications that have been running for 30 years that run on IBM Power. It's not going away. Its growing presence in the cloud is sort of a testament to how customers still want that hardware, and they still want operating systems like AIX and IBM and then that gives them the opportunity to run Linux and containers and OpenShift and things on the same platform that you're running AIX and IBM.
All right. Okay. And like with the rise of edge computing and AI, how do you see the role of traditional data centers evolving in the next 5 to 10 years from now?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, they're not going to go anywhere. The cloud is just equipment that sits in somebody else's data center. It's a joke that's been made for a long time, but it's still true. Companies are moving to models where they want to bring some of those cloud-like features into the data center for stuff that they don't want to put out into the cloud. Private cloud, hybrid cloud that still relies on some data center somewhere. But I think the biggest critical need and the biggest thing that's changing, and you're seeing this a lot, is around energy and power. It's small p power, not IBM power, but electricity and cooling and things like that. As processors get smaller and more powerful, we're putting more of them into the same amount of space. It's incredibly dense, and that's a huge energy problem. Do you have enough energy in your data center to be able to run AI on the systems you have or the systems that you need to have? And you're starting to see like these really big providers now, Microsoft, other companies like that. are starting to look at becoming their own energy providers, nuclear power, solar power to power their data centers. Um, you're already seeing a lot. Another thing, you're seeing a lot more computing now on edge devices.
Yeah.
My phone does way more than, I didn't have a cell phone 30 years ago. And so you're seeing edge devices doing a lot more of the processing that used to happen in the data center. But the data center is still going to act as a data store. It'll be a hub for backup and recovery. It'll still be a hub for disaster recovery. You're not going to put petabytes of data on your phone. And if that data is super sensitive, think of like GDPR. It may not actually sit in the cloud. It'll have to sit in a data center you can control.
Yeah.
AI is gonna drive more inferencing to occur on on your cell phone, on a tablet, out on the edge. But the model training is probably still going to sit wherever the data sits, which is probably in a data center. Um, Getting this back to like IBM Power computing, look at the capabilities inherent now in smaller Power 10 servers. You can put 8 cores in a Power 10 and have it sit on in like a tower model on your desktop. So there's a ton that you can still do on the edge. There's a ton that you can do in the cloud, but the really big giant workloads are still going to sit in a data center.
Yeah. Okay. And with your so far experience, like what do you think? What are the most common roadblocks enterprises face while migrating their infrastructure to cloud? Because I noticed that somewhere there are some organization who still are not that comfortable to migrate infrastructure to cloud. So how they can deal with those kind of challenges, and what are those common pitfalls that you have observed so far?
The technology, I think it's less of a technical problem. There's some technical debt involved. Maybe not understanding how it works or how am I going to provision or things like that. I think the biggest concerns that customers have, these are they're not technical, but they're more policy driven, and you can overcome them, and it takes some work. And I've had a lot of conversations with people that sell cloud around this, but the first and foremost is this shift from a capex model to an opex model. And engineers don't like to be told that an architecture depends on the financial considerations, but this is probably the number one issue. Frankly, if an organization doesn't want to move to an OpEx model, then the decision's been made. The conversation's over. They've got to be willing to make that change. Um, and that then causes some issues with governance. The minute that you start allowing, the premise around cloud computing is that you put more power and control in the hands of your users. Well, the problem of what they call skunk works, this has been around for a long time. Um, a software developer is storing his code or critical tools on a server that's sitting on his desktop that he went out and bought with a credit card. And now nobody knows if it's being backed up or if it's being secured. Do you have other disaster and recovery and resiliency plans in place? Nobody knows. Cloud isn't any really different. Now it's sitting in a data center, but you don't necessarily control the assets. You may not have to buy those assets. You're relying on somebody else to provide all of that infrastructure and platform support, and you're going to trust that it's working. Um, so how easy is it now for some product manager to just go buy his own cloud instance? Makes it easier to do it. Maybe not for production code, maybe just for testing. I don't want to have to go wait for IT to go provision something. I'm going to go provision it myself. How do you do asset management? How do you govern all of that? That's one of the big hangups I think that a lot of people have. And if you can answer those questions, I can govern this just like I governed the data center and yet not slow you down, then I think users will be more open to this. I think the other thing here, and this is a bit of marketing, um, you users kind of have to understand where a cloud model works and doesn't work. Um, I don't need to have a server in my data center, maybe to run access to my banking app. I can do that on my phone. That's going to run in the cloud. I mean, how many? We don't necessarily deploy email servers anymore. If you're using Outlook or Gmail or something, that's sitting out in the cloud. That's fine, and we understand that. But if I've got a petabyte database, it's not probably going to be running in the cloud. there may be latency issues and stuff like that. A problem that requires me to download a terabyte of data, process it, and then upload that terabyte of data probably shouldn't be in the cloud just because of the costs involved of that network, network transfer. So understanding the use cases is a big deal. But the cloud is wonderful. It's a game changer. But nothing instills more fear in customers than telling them that it's going to solve all of their problems. It won't. It'll solve some of their problems. So the traditional data center isn't going to go away.
All right. Okay. And Kevin, like you have had an experience of mentoring and training people across various level of technical expertise. So, what advice do you have for those like who wanted to break their career into the enterprise IT architecture or maybe in the system engineering? So, what piece of advice
Sure.
would you like to give here?
So I currently I volunteer at the College of Engineering at the University of Texas in Arlington a couple of times a semester. I read resumes and I meet with students and I'm often asked, how do I get started? And I harken back to my own experience of learning that I didn't want to write code, that I liked the infrastructure stuff that I was doing. So I tell students a lot, learn to solve different problems.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a university student, right? Learn different tools, learn different problem domains. Your coursework and your professors help a lot with that. Every professor's got an expertise. Pick one or
Yeah,
two that you want to learn from. But the big thing that don't be so fixated on I'm going to write Python the rest of my career. Learn different tools. Take an embedded
correct.
systems class. Go pretty broad. The opportunity when you're a student is that you can learn a lot of different things. So learn how things work. Learn why they don't work. Be willing to treat failure. Uh, Again, it's a university environment. You can fail at things, but you know learn why things don't work, and then understand that your career is not going to be just solving one problem all the time. You're going to be
Correct.
you know solving lots of different problems. So then when they start their career, and I've had this question a lot, students about to graduate, now this is the time to really learn, like pick one skill and learn it really well. I had a student one time ask me, I don't know if I should take a job in machine learning or take a job in cybersecurity. And I said, it doesn't matter. Pick one, learn that really well, and then you start, you're going to solve a certain set of problems and you're going to get more problems that kind of come from that. If you're into operating systems, if you're a sysadmin, don't learn how to do Linux or AIX or something else. Don't learn just how to install it. Learn how to recover from backups. Learn how disaster recovery works. Disaster recovery is not just a technical problem; it's a policy and a governance problem, management problem. Learn how the different tools and applications work. It's a giant apple. You have to start, taking it a bite at a time. But you do finally, the key to a really successful career is being able to go both broad, understand a lot of different problems, and to be able to go really deep in some of those. Everybody wants an expert.
Yeah.
Um, and that's good. Be an expert at something, but also know a lot of things, because the opportunities come to people that can kind of meld those things um, together. And the last thing I'll say about students and resumes, because I've read hundreds of resumes, thousands of resumes, is that a lot of times students don't put projects on them, or they
Yes.
say, well, they diminish the value, they devalue work that they've done in the lab or in the classroom by saying, well, I didn't get paid for it. It was just a project. That may be more current and more relevant than anything that the person reading that resume has ever done in their career. So students, put those projects on there, treat it like real experience. You just didn't get paid for it.
Yes, I am completely agree with this point that yes, projects should be there because this is the only thing that you can show as your expertise because you have learned the things, right? And everyone know the basic syntaxes and the structure of the programming language. But if you know how to use it, how to make the innovative solution through all those concepts, then it would be very beneficial. So if you can attach your projects in your resume or maybe on your LinkedIn profile, for sure you will be getting lots of opportunities in your career. So
It's
that's a
about solving problems, right? I've never written a mobile app, but
yeah.
every undergraduate coming out of UT Arlington, it seems, has taken a class where they wrote a mobile app to do something like stock prices or whatever.
Correct.
It doesn't matter. They wrote a mobile app. I've never done that. You know, I'm 30
Mhm.
years older than some of those folks, some of those kids, and I've they've got more experience than I do at that particular problem.
Okay. All right. And Kevin, like you have also given back a lot through your volunteering work with different organizations in the community. So can you share like how volunteering has influenced both your personal and professional life?
Sure, I've done a lot of things. Right now, uh, I've done a lot of things in the community. Right now, I teach classes at my church a couple times a month. As I mentioned, I mentor engineering students at a university. Um, my wife and I have helped in our community administer local and state and national elections at a precinct near our home a couple of times a year. Last month, the U.S. election, right? We managed a polling place. For 20 years, when my children were at home, I volunteered in the schools they attended. I've chaperoned choir trips, helped out with the Boy Scouts of America. I've advocated for like organ donation. I've done a lot of different things. Um, one of my core philosophies, right? We have a finite amount of time in life. It's our moral responsibility to kind of help people around us and improve the world that we're in. At a personal level, you can't wait for the government to step in and solve problems with you know your neighbor whose house is burned down or something like that, right? There isn't enough time, money, or people to solve all the problems in the world and make life better. People need to use their resources and their time to give back and do that. But the key thing is I like doing these things. It's nice to be wanted. It's nice to be needed, and in many cases, I usually, I guess it goes without saying, is that when someone asks me to help out with a project that I'm never going to get paid for it, right? But if it's something that I can do and it's work that I don't find objectionable, sure, let me help. I find that I enhance my own skills sometimes, dealing with people, talking to people, being more understanding, as I get involved in some of this stuff. So either I'm using skills I've developed or I'm developing new skills. And these are all places where somebody actually needs me. Sometimes it's a little self-centered. It benefits my own children. I used to coach my own children in a math team one time because there was no one else to do it.
Yeah.
Um, but I guess the interesting thing is that I almost never use my IT skills. It's all the other skills that I've developed over the course of my life. But the key thing is I have time to do it, and I enjoy doing it. And so, yeah, I give back wherever I can.
Okay, all right. So as we can see that you have worked across so many domains with different type of community. So what's a fun or an interesting fact about you, about your work that most people wouldn't guess about you? So is there anything special here?
Yeah. So I lived in South America when I was a young man. I lived in Chile for 2 years. I'm fluent in Spanish. I earned a second bachelor's degree in Spanish. I've had the opportunity to use my Spanish skills on different projects. I've done projects for customers that were in other countries. I'm conversationally fluent. My technical lexicon is still pretty weak, and most engineers, I think, are using English for that kind of stuff. But I always joke you can drop me into a foreign country, especially a Spanish speaking one, and I have no problems. Um,
Okay.
I love to travel. I've wherever I've gone, whenever I've traveled for work, I've tried to see some of the local culture, or eat at a local restaurant. I've traveled all over the world. I've worked in different continents. Um, it's great.
All right. So I think traveling is one of your hobby, right? That keeps you inspired and motivated.
Absolutely. My family and I, we love to travel. Again, we've been all around the United States. We've been around the world. Interesting thing here, and I'm proud of saying this, I've never forfeited a vacation day given to me in my entire life. You
Okay.
know, uh, when companies offer you vacation time, you need to use that. I always cringe when someone says, I worked too hard this year. I didn't get to take a vacation. It's like, this is free. You need to figure out a way to do it. When I travel for work, sometimes I find like I got to do a restaurant or a museum or go see some famous site, I make it. I just kind of bake it into my schedule. When I've taken my family on me sometimes in the summertime when they were out of school and they were younger. If I was going to be in a city for 3 weeks, we would go along. So, like I said, I've been around a lot of countries on 4 different continents. I've been to most of the states in the United States. There's a lot of cool things.
Okay, all right. Although, like, we have many things that we can discuss here in this podcast, but just because of the limitation of time, I would like to ask my last question, and it is related to the mentors, like, or maybe the person like who have been who have played a vital role in your journey. So, could you please share those no those names, maybe names of colleagues, mentors, or family member, or anyone like with whom you have collaborated closely and who have influenced your journey?
Sure. Um, uh, I mean, there are so many. There are dozens and dozens, hundreds of people probably that I've learned from. But I can give you four really quick people that taught me something interesting. Um, First of all, for a number of years, I worked for a managed service provider, and there was a guy there named David Lancaster. He's retired now. He was sort of like the director of engineering, director of systems engineering. He had just a really just he taught me a lot about operations and execution. Right, we were in an IT operations kind of outsourcing role, and he had some very definitive takes on how to be excellent at that, how to make sure that we were executing at a high level, and kind of changed my thinking on a lot of things. Um, he was great. There was a coworker that I had, recently named Mark Ritzman. Um, he is he's the first person I met who has both a PhD in a technical field and an MBA. We worked in roles where we were looking at kind of the future. Sometimes we were looking at how products were developed and marketed. I've never met anybody who had such sort of a deep and broad understanding of technology and the business and market implications. I learned a lot from him about just how to think about certain problems.
Hmm.
And he's been a valuable resource to kind of go back to. Number three, really quick, was my advisor in grad school was a woman named Diane Cook at Washington State University. She had moved on to Washington State. But I wrote my master's thesis under her. She advised me a lot on some stuff that I did. Did a couple of research papers for publication with her. I learned more about like the scalability of a problem from her than I learned anywhere else, right? But she kind of made us look at problems at the worst case. Too many people find a solution, say this is great, it's going to work, and especially when I was writing like a thesis, she would ask me, "Well, does this work if you scale it up?" Well, maybe it doesn't. Anyway, she was just really instrumental. I was an older graduate student. She was a good friend. And
Okay.
then finally, there's a man named Craig Allen. Um, we didn't work together. We volunteered together in a couple of roles. And on a personal level, this guy has the ability to sort of connect with people. He really loved people. He cared about people. He cared about their problems. I learned a lot from him just about, I don't know, how to be a better human.
Mhm.
So
Okay. All right. So thank you so much, Kevin, for joining us in this podcast and for sharing your expertise with us. We wish you a very good future ahead. And thank you once again for being a part of the show.
thanks for having me on.
Thanks.